Some stars of a popular auction show took a break, Achille, and never returned to your screens. What really happened to them?
Do you still remember?
And go!
Thank you!
Woo!
Come on, Grandma!
This man nearly lost everything he had built his entire life in just 2 seconds. Barry Weiss of Storage Wars gave his fans the best show with his unique personality and called it a day, ready to leave fame behind. But away from the cameras, everything changed. A devastating incident left him fighting for his life and changed the future he once imagined. So what really happened to Barry Weiss after Storage Wars? And what kind of man did he become when he made his way out of that kind of dip? Join us as we discuss the truly heartbreaking story of Barry Weiss. Built before the cameras rolled, Barry Weiss ranks among the most recognizable faces to ever appear on Storage Wars. A lot of viewers assume that the show made him, that his success began when those cameras started rolling. But that assumption couldn't miss the mark more widely. Long before millions tuned in each week, Barry Weiss had already made a life for himself that many would envy. He wasn't hunting for attention. In truth, he'd already achieved a level of comfort and stability that rendered celebrity almost beside the point. Fans tend to associate him with deep pockets and an outsized personality. What often goes unnoticed, though, is just how bumpy the road to his present circumstances really was. Barry came into the world on February 11, 1951, in Demarest, New Jersey, born into a Jewish household. His dad, Weiss, made his name as a record producer, launching Old Town Records and guiding groups like the Harptones and the Cleftones through their early careers. As a boy, Barry frequently accompanied his father to the office, crossing paths with towering figures like Isaac Hayes and Simon and Garfunkel long before he was old enough to get behind the wheel. Even with those music industry ties, though, household finances remained tight. To stretch whatever pocket money he had, Barry took on odd jobs, cutting grass, washing vehicles, and selling snacks at the ballpark. Through those early hustles, Barry developed a knack for reading strangers. He learned how to make a pitch count and close conversations quickly, an instinct that would turn out to be far more valuable than he ever anticipated. Once high school wrapped up, he went his own way. Rather than heading off to college, he cycled through a handful of blue-collar positions until 1972, when he landed a spot at a dock handling used merchandise liquidations. That moment marked a shift. He stumbled into storage unit auctions, realized he had a natural gift for spotting overlooked treasures, and from then on, he was fully committed. Drawing on what he picked up in that environment, Barry launched a business that raised quite a few eyebrows. He began acquiring unclaimed storage spaces, returned goods from retailers, stacks of aged stock, and repossessed freight. He possessed an almost eerie talent for finding the remarkable buried inside the mundane. His weekends were spent roaming swap meets, yard sales, and auction halls, forever chasing the next hidden gem. He'd organize his finds, sell off the bulk, and hang on to whatever pieces spoke to him personally. Before he knew it, 20 years had slipped by, and that unglamorous side gig had grown into a fully fledged operation. By then, he commanded warehouses up and down Southern California, with hired teams processing the constant flow of merchandise. His enterprise expanded to the point that major retailers, names like Walmart and Target, came looking to partner with him. Barry signed agreements with those chains, helping them clear out unsellable inventory while quietly keeping the finest discoveries for his own collection. He also launched a storefront called Nugget Sporting Goods in the San Fernando Valley, which turned into a beloved destination for fans of sports memorabilia. But that resale venture was only half of his fortune. The rest came from an entirely separate line of work. So, Barry's grandfather had started a family business back in 1938, Northern Produce, which focused on importing and exporting fruits and vegetables up and down California. Barry joined forces with his sibling Joey to steer that company. They quickly absorbed the ins and outs, steadily nursing the enterprise from a shaky operation into a solidly profitable one that created considerable wealth for both brothers. By the time Barry reached his 50s, his net worth had climbed to roughly $10 million, a sum substantial enough that he could have retired on the spot without a second thought. After roughly a quarter century, Barry and his brother eventually sold off their produce company. At that juncture, he found himself financially independent, still in good health, relatively youthful, and utterly uninterested in a conventional retirement. His entire adult life had been consumed by work, by the pressures and headaches of running businesses, and now, all at once, he had endless time and plentiful resources, but no obvious use for either. Not long after that sale, his friend Tom Beers, a television producer and narrator who would go on to serve as executive producer for Storage Wars, came calling. When Tom invited Barry to appear on the series, he said yes without a moment's pause. Barry, the man who had assembled a $10 million empire from scratch, who had raised 2 children, Jack and Julie, and who had accomplished more than plenty of people ever dare to dream, was now on the verge of becoming a name recognized in living rooms across the country. He'd already won life's lottery, but fame was about to remake his world in ways he hadn't anticipated. What fame looks like without hunger. When Storage Wars premiered on A&E in December 2010, it introduced a cast of characters desperate for a big score. Dave Hester was hunting for profit margins. Daryl Sheets was chasing the big find. Jared Schultz and Brandy Passante were trying to build a retail empire. But Barry Weiss was different from day one. Unlike others, he was there for the hunt, the pure, unadulterated thrill of prying open a rusted lock and discovering something strange, beautiful, or historically irrelevant. Ironically, Barry had never purchased a storage unit before joining the series. He was learning on the job, in front of millions of viewers, and somehow that raw authenticity became his greatest asset. Barry brought a level of eccentricity that the show desperately needed. He bid on lockers not based on their potential resale value, but on a gut feeling, a hunch, or simply because he liked the look of the door. It was no surprise that he quickly grew popular with audiences. Take, for instance, how he'd arrive in hot rods with flamethrower exhausts, wearing flamboyant shirts, or how he treated the auctioneers with a casual irreverence that made him stand out against the aggressive way his co-stars bid. Plus, Barry's knowledge in antiques and vintage cars was all he needed to be loved in the collecting community. Even though Barry wasn't on the show for money, he was anything but underpaid. Per episode, Barry earned a guaranteed $25,000. With a minimum of 26 episodes per season, that means he was making at least $650,000 annually from the network. For the other buyers, that paycheck was life-changing. But for Barry, it was just change. Money that probably only paid for his car maintenance and gasoline. Despite his fame, Barry didn't try to leverage it to build a merchandise brand like the others. He simply showed up, bought weird stuff, and drove his custom cars home. He called himself a professional slacker, meaning he worked only when he felt like it. And by 2013, after 4 seasons of filming, Barry stopped feeling like it, leaving on his own terms. Barry Weiss left Storage Wars after season 4, and his exit shocked the network and the fan base alike. When asked about his departure in a 2017 video interview, Barry gave a characteristically simple and brutally honest answer. He had had enough and kind of wanted to leave while it was still popular. He clarified that he had a blast on the show, but the grind of filming had begun to wear thin. He wanted to return to his roots as a man who answered to no one and clocked in only when inspiration struck. Sadly, Barry didn't just leave the show. He left the public eye entirely. At first, the network tried to coax him back with spin-off projects, and he did return in 2015 in a special edition called Storage Wars, Barry Strikes Back, which saw Barry and close friend Kenny Crossley share behind-the-scenes moments and commentary from past episodes. There was also a short-lived series called Buried Treasure, which was clearly an attempt to capitalize on his popularity. But these were fleeting distractions. Barry never wanted to be the lead of his own franchise. He wanted to be a free agent. By 2016, he had officially stepped away from regular television, content to fade back into the private world of his massive car collection and antique haunts. At 60 years old, he was healthy and completely unburdened. He spent his days traveling, tinkering with his hot rods, and visiting swap meets across the country. He was, by all external measures, living the dream. But the universe had a cruel habit of punishing those who get out too cleanly. The man who had the wisdom to leave before the show jumped the shark would soon face a catastrophe that no amount of foresight could have prevented. 2 seconds in Los Feliz, April 24th, 2019, on a Wednesday afternoon in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles. The sun was out, the streets were dry, and Barry Weiss, then 68 years old, was doing what he loved most, riding his motorcycle with a close friend. That friend was Jamie Robinson of MotoGeo, a fellow motorcycle enthusiast who shared Barry's passion for the open road. At approximately 2:30 in the afternoon, they were cruising down a residential street when a car pulled out from a parking space directly into their path. And in just a moment of inattention, Barry and Jamie slammed into the back of the vehicle. Both motorcycles were pushed down to the street, metal scraping against asphalt, and bodies tumbling across the pavement. The aftermath was devastating. Jamie Robinson managed to post an Instagram video from the crash scene moments after the accident, calling it a big disaster. In a separate post from his hospital bed, he wrote, "Not a good day at the office. A serious crash today with my friend Barry Weiss when a car pulled out directly in front of us and took our road away. Jamie was rushed to the hospital with a broken knee, a broken elbow, and a broken wrist. Painful but survivable injuries." He admitted that Barry was in a much worse condition. TMZ later obtained the 911 call placed by the driver of the car that was struck. The driver told the operator that she had been hit from behind and that someone was already administering first aid to Barry on the street. Barry Weiss took the brunt of the impact. He was transported to a local Los Angeles hospital with what doctors would later describe as serious chest and leg trauma, broken bones, and internal injuries that required immediate surgical intervention. He was placed in the intensive care unit, where he would remain for an extended period. Barry's initial surgeries focused on stabilizing his back and reconstructing his leg. He had to undergo one major procedure on his spine and at least 2 on his femur. Sources told TMZ that more procedures would follow. Despite the difficulties, Barry remained alert and was reportedly eager to get out of a hospital bed and go home. But just as they thought he was getting better, things started to get out of control once again. Family sources revealed that during Barry's recovery, he had suffered a stroke. Now it wasn't about his body healing. It was now up to his brain to respond. Doctors projected that his road to recovery would take years. That, though, was terrifying for a man who had built his life around freedom and movement. It was the lowest point of his life, and for a while, Even his closest friends weren't sure if he would make it out whole. But instead, during his recovery, Barry took on a brand ambassador role for Sherwood Valley Casino in Willits, Northern California. The arrangement gave him something to do, a reason to stay connected to the public, and a platform that did not require the physical demands of production. But even after surviving such a harrowing ordeal, Barry had to accept a heartbreaking truth. It didn't help matters when rumors began to spread about his death. Most people believed that Crash had closed the final chapter of Barry's story. They were wrong. A second chance. Against all medical expectations, Barry Weiss refused to stay down. By March 2021, TMZ reported that the world-class slacker was preparing a return to the auction circuit. A&E seized the opportunity, officially announcing his return for Season 14 of Storage Wars. The comeback specials, titled Welcome Back Barry, Older and Barrier, and Welcome Back Barry, Pearls of Barry Dom, aired on October 26, 2021. But the true moment of triumph came on November 2, 2021, when Season 14 officially premiered. Barry rolled onto the auction lot in his stunning black 1939 Lincoln Zephyr coupe, a sleek machine that had been retrofitted with a flamethrower exhaust. He stepped out, looked at the camera, and asked, "Did you miss me?" The crowd erupted, and viewers at home felt a collective wave of relief. After nearly 2 years of relearning how to walk and move again, Barry was back. And who didn't miss him? Even Barry told the camera that he felt like a completely born-again bidder and showed his new lease on life with an impressive profit from his first storage container. Throughout 2021 and 2022, Barry appeared in Season 14, and he continued into Season 15 in 2023. By 2025, he had fully gotten back into his rhythm on the show. By Season 17, Barry was no longer hunting for fun. He was determined to play for keeps, so he adopted a very strict new buying regimen and worked with an internationally recognized bidding coach. He was now front and center of the show. Maybe after the worst that could happen, Barry realized there was no point staying away from the fame. He might as well embrace it all. But as of the latest production reports, there is no concrete evidence that Barry will appear in a potential Season 18 of Storage Wars. The network has remained quiet about his future involvement, and Barry himself has given no indication of his long-term plans. He is, as always, a man who works only when he feels like it. And at 75, he has earned the right to be selective. The man who left while the show was still popular may choose to do so again. The aging collector. To mark his return, Barry started pulling out the real show pieces from his garage. All told, his collection sits somewhere around $500,000 in value, but the number hardly matters next to the stories each one carries. Take the Beatnik Custom, for instance. That's not just a car. It's a 3-year obsession on wheels. The base is a 1955 Ford, but you'd barely recognize it. The builder reshaped almost every inch of metal, drawing heavy inspiration from Cadillac's sweeping space-age styling. The result is a rolling car that looks like it drove straight out of a fever dream. It took 36 months of building to get it right, and Barry treats it like the art piece it is. From there, you've got the 1947 Cowboy Cadillac, and yes, the name fits. This one's a truck, really, with a set of bull steer horns bolted right onto the grille, pointing forward like it's about to charge. The value floats somewhere between $50,000 and $70,000, but that's beside the point. What makes it special is how it announces its owner before he even steps out. Then there's the King of Mercs. That's the nickname, and it's earned. This Mercury is a crowd stopper at every auction and car show it rolls into. Everything about it screams showstopper. For people who follow classic customs, This one's a legend in its own right, the kind of car that other collectors point at and nod with respect. But the one that stole the spotlight in his comeback special was the 1939 Lincoln Zephyr Coupe. And this one hits different because it's the same car he was driving the day he came back to television after his accident. The Zephyr is a piece of automotive history with streamlined Art Deco lines that made it one of the most advanced designs of its era. Long and low, with those teardrop headlights, it looks like it's moving even when it's parked. Barry's garage has turned into a kind of museum with rows of cars and motorcycles that most folks only ever see in magazines. And Barry still spends his free time wandering antique shops and swap meets, keeping his eyes peeled for that one oddball trinket that makes him smile. Through all of it, though, his family stays separate from the noise. His children, Jack and Julie, and his grandson, Oliver, anchor the part of his life that reality TV never touches. Sure, 2019 changed him. He walks differently now. His perspective on time and what matters has changed in ways that can't be undone. But he's still Barry Weiss. He's still out there collecting, still behind the wheel. And as long as those two things stay true, the collector hasn't lost a thing. What do you think compelled Barry to come back on the show after his accident? And when the day finally comes for him to leave Storage Wars for good, can the show ever feel the same without him? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.